From the Ugly Parrot Studios in Newcastle, California, the Loomis Cigar Cartel presents Beyond the Humidor, a cigar podcast for the rest of us. Welcome back, everybody. Scott Robinson with you for another episode of Beyond the Humidor. We got a bit of a late start, but you guys won't know the difference, so I don't even know why the hell I mentioned that. I am here as usual with the Three Musketeers, if you will. Let's start with the Gorilla Musketeer. How you doing there?
The Gorilla is doing well.
All right, you have enough toys over there to keep you occupied?
Occupied and stimulated.
That's good. That's what we like with the Gorilla.
Hey.
Yeah, just a bit.
Hey, Lawrence, how you doing?
I'm good, man.
Good. Now we've got alcohol, and I'm not doing like 90 on 80. I put it in Sport Plus mode.
Oh, jeez.
I'll tell you about my trip to L.A., how that kind of relates to it. But anyway, Greg, how you doing?
Doing great. Good show today, good guest, and I'd like to say good friend joining us today. So,
Well, all right. Well, let's just get right into it. This gentleman is the owner of the Vault out in Idaho. And how many locations he's got out there?
1.45. He's got the Vault Eagle, the Vault Meridian, and in 2 years, the Vault Caldwell. So
yes,
here he is. This is Josh Evarts.
Hey, Josh,
Hey,
how you
thank
doing?
guys. No, I'm doing fantastic. No, I'm super excited to be on the show today, actually. So thank you for having me.
Our pleasure.
Absolutely.
We'll cure that in a little bit.
Yeah, I've already started drinking, so I'm ready.
God bless you, sir.
Another spirit animal. I like this.
So what are you drinking over there?
I've got a full bar up in my office, but for today's cast, I brought out the Lafroig 18. So that's what I'll be enjoying during the cast today.
Nice.
It is great to be around your own people who have bars in their homes and offices.
Well, I actually had to buy the building in order to be able to smoke and drink at my leisure in it. So, yeah, it costs a little bit, but only the best.
Good man, good man. What are you smoking right now, by the way?
You know, I intentionally didn't start. I picked a cigar for the show. It's actually a cigar that started last year. So Dion Giolito, who blends for and owns Illusione Cigars, has been a great partner for the 6 years that our main location's been open. So for our 5-year anniversary last year, and he just doesn't do one-off projects. Like the last one he did was for Jeremy Piven. And while I do experience a certain amount of celebrity around my home, I certainly have not accomplished what Jeremy Piven has. But I went to Dion and said, hey, I want you to do our 5-year anniversary cigar. We started it over a year ago. He just got the production with the bands and everything, so you can get an idea of kind of what it looks like. So it's got that Illusione Privé Vault 5-year anniversary. But they have, we just got the inventory shipped up to us in Idaho. We won't be releasing this cigar until the 6-year anniversary. So we'll have a 5-year anniversary band, but it'll be a 6-year anniversary party. So Corojo wrapper, everything else is coming out of Tabsa there in Nicaragua, the Aganorsa Leaf Factory. And so fantastic. Really, really great. I've been smoking the hell out of them. Hopefully I've got some left to sell come September.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah, Dion can do no wrong, man. I'm a lover of the Illusione product.
Gold. He's gold.
Yes.
Like, he's just unbelievable. So, yeah, we're very lucky to have him do it. We actually did it in 2 different wrappers. So we've got this Corojo wrapper, and then he also did a version of a Maduro wrapper for us as well. So there's actually 2 blends, but they're all in a closed foot Lonsdale because that's my favorite size format cigar. So
Sweet.
That's what I'll be smoking.
Sweet. So tell us about the beginnings of the Vault. How did this all come about? Because we talk about this on the podcast. Folks have this fantasy as they're smoking a cigar. Either it's, hey, I want to come up with my own line, or B, ooh, it'd be really cool to open up a shop.
Yeah, mine is not that tail at all. So I've been smoking cigars for 20 plus years. My wife smokes cigars. She's actually got a better palate than I do at this point. But we restore historic buildings up here in Idaho. So the building I'm sitting in right now is called the Heritage Building. It was built in 1902. And we started this project back in 2014, effectively 2013. So it's the 10-year anniversary of this project. a block away to our east was the original Bank of Meridian that was built in 1905. They were going to tear the building down because the owners had left it in such disrepair that it was becoming a safety hazard for the city. So my wife and I contacted the owners by mail, by physical mail, because that's all we had from the assessor's office, and said, hey, if you would be interested in selling your building, I'd like to take a shot at restoring it. Very, very nice couple, older couple, Greg and Sheila Bitton. We were able to buy the building from them. It took us almost a year to do the repointing of all the brick, do the restoration. Greg, you've been up there and seen it.
Yep.
And when we got it done in 2015, my wife and I literally used it as our living room. So we had 2 chairs in there, a TV, and we did a like a white film, like a privacy film on the windows, so people couldn't look in, because we would just go in there, smoke cigars, drink wine, drink scotch, whatever, and it was like our extended living room. And about a year into that, we made the awful mistake of inviting our mayor and her husband to come in and have cigars and wine with us one night. And the mayor of Meridian said, Josh, you really need to turn this into a cigar lounge. And I said, Mayor, I don't really like people. That actually makes no sense at all. Like, I have this living room that I just get to spend time with. And the brick and mortar shop that was in Meridian was 3 doors down. So we would do special events for their lounge. So if it was a manufacturer event, we'd let them use the vault for coming in, doing one-off events. But the owner of that shop, Steve Devanzo, was getting on in age. And so he said, boy, your location would be much, much better for a cigar lounge. So we did a deal with Steve, bought out his shop, and in 2017 opened up the vault. So that's how we ended up where we're at today.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of it, and Greg can't shut up about it. He loves going out there and visiting you guys. And we'll be making a visit out there real soon as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, though, you missed Sarah, so, won't
Sarah,
be able to get the Caparina made.
You're not going to miss her drinks, though. Like, one of the things we've been really faithful with. So Sarah was our so when we opened the lounge, we opened without any alcohol. So it was just Coke products, Diet Coke, Dr. Pepper, Sprite, whatever. And about 6 months into it, guys were like, boy, I'd really like something, more than that. So we got a beer and wine license. So Idaho's very strange in how they handle beer, wine, liquor. It's all very separate and state run. So we did a beer and wine license for a couple of years. And during COVID, there was a bar across the street from us that closed, and they put their liquor license up for sale, and 2 nice gals owned it. And we were actually just more or less helping them out because the state was going to take their license away if they didn't sell it. So we did a deal with them. We bought the license in 20, and then in 21 actually built out the bar and then brought in Sarah. So Sarah was a mixologist that we had known from another restaurant. And she'd make great drinks, and it started out as consulting, just working on our menu. And she finally told us, said, look, I love your culture, I love cigars, I love what you're doing, and what would it look like for me to come to work? So she came to work for us, built our entire bar operations. She really is truly extraordinary. In fact, we knew we were only going to keep her for a very short time because she had bigger things. In fact, she went on to get her instruction in bartending as a bartending instructor over in Europe about 1.5 years ago. Okay. And then she's now a teacher. She teaches mixology in New York City at a very high level. So she's training the next generation of bartenders to be great. But that's Sarah.
Wow.
Yeah, she's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I did miss her. Ooh.
Well, Josh, I don't think I've ever told the story about our Denver trip, and it got back to Sarah through our good friend Tommy Elledge up there, that when we were in Denver for the first Rocky Mountain Cigar Festival in 2019, Scott could not find a Caparina to save his life.
Yeah.
I
And guess
had a freaking bartender look at me like I asked him the square root of like a 6-figure number. He's like, a Capa what? And he's sitting there like pointing, like saying, I can make something. Like,
You thought it was a draft beer.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, the variation that we did on that, because that literally is one of my favorite drinks. And so I told Sarah, I said, I want to create a signature drink for the vault that's not a Caparina, but like a derivative of that. I said, I just want you to be super thoughtful. So the Kaiproska, which is the Russian version of it, so it's using vodka as the base. So she came up with a cocktail that we call the Czar. So it's using vodka, but we use a ginger vodka, and then the limes, the sugars, and everything. And we use a big brown sugar kernel in the bottom. So when you suck that drink up through the straw, you're getting these, these big chunks of sugar in there as well. And since day one, it's been one of the top selling cocktails on our menu. So it's the Czar when you come up.
I like that.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah,
we need to get you two up
there. So as I ask all cigar aficionados or people who have smoked cigars for a long time, and everyone's been able to answer this as of yet, can you remember the first cigar that basically broke your cherry, your very first one?
You know what? I am about 99.9% sure that it was an 1874 Romeo and Juliet that I was smoking on the river. So the guy that's responsible, so I do a lot of whitewater rafting. So living in Idaho, where we have more continuous class 3+ rapids than anywhere in the U.S., got into whitewater rafting when I moved up here 30 years ago. Have my own boat. It's called Smoke on the Water. It's got built-in humidors on my whitewater raft, so we take customers out. It's great. But my buddy Shad was the one who taught me how to captain my boat. I was a craft beer guy and a cigar, like, I knew they existed, but never really had one. He was a Miller Lite, Coors, simple beer, but he was like the cigar guy in our group. And so again, this is 20 years ago. Or longer. And so we were on a trip on the Payette River, and he had his little travel humidor and said, "Hey, I want you to try a cigar." And I'm like, "Well, nothing too strong, not really my thing." And I'm almost 99.9% sure it was a 1874 Romeo, and smoked it up, thought it was great. And what's happened over our 2+ decades of relationship is he became such a craft beer guy that he opened his own brewery in his house, got a Beer Magic, a full line for doing his own beers. And I went from smoking very light, cigars to the journey I'm on now. So yeah, a lot of fun, but that was the first one. Okay, right on. Now, what do you like to drink with cigars? Is it mostly scotch or a craft drink or beer? What's your go-to? Yeah. I've spent a lot of time in Nicaragua. So all the drinks, when you talk about pairings and creating those experiences, the pairing really drives most of what I'm drinking. So for example, if I'm drinking or smoking Nicaraguan cigars, which are going to tend to have a little bit more pepper, a little bit more spice, then I'm going to settle on those spirits that are based in sugars and are a little bit sweeter. So I'm typically drinking rums. I'm drinking premium tequilas when I'm smoking, Nicaraguan cigars. If I'm moving somewhere else, and I'm smoking cigars, 60 miles north in Honduras, some of the Costa Rican products, Dominican, where I don't have as much of that pepper, that's when I can get into some of the scotches and be able to, take on a little bit more peat and smoke to pair with that. So primarily my wife and I were premium tequila people. So a lot of Don Julio 42, a lot of really, really smooth sipping tequilas. Sweet. Me personally, as long as it has alcohol in it, that's what I'm drinking. Whatever I can get my hands on, and whichever cigar I can get my hands on. That's pretty much the story. Look, Scott, it's wisdom is what it is. Just wisdom. I hear that.
You ain't seen the camping trip video, my friend.
You never will.
Probably not.
Never say never.
But no, and one of the things I've always told these guys, and in fact it came up in the promo video you did for us, is that I don't think they've experienced a humidor quite like yours, because you've taken the time, and I love the word you choose to use for it too, because it really is what it is. You curated that humidor, and the stuff that I would normally expect to see is not there. There are two names that are generally I can find everywhere that are in your humidor. The rest of them are exactly what we talked about with your interview, where you're picking a brand, a process, a culture in that. And, the two that I normally associate are, of course, Fuente and Padron. But Can you give us a little bit more on some of the other brands in there? Obviously, you know my favorite is 1502, which is what I have. But can you give us a little bit more on that?
No, I think it's an important conversation for retailers, and I think consumers alike to hear this. And there are probably going to be certain manufacturers that celebrate these comments, and others, as you can imagine, that would be frightened. But I'd never done retail my entire professional life. So my whole background is software. My degree's in accounting. So everything in my world is ones and zeros. And so when we were doing the cigar lounge, I went and got wisdom. So a good friend of mine's got 2 shops down in Vegas. I had done a trip to Nicaragua with him before we were ever thinking about doing the vault. And so I reached out to him and said, hey, I'm been presented this challenge to be able to do a cigar lounge in Meridian. Give me some wisdom. And, he shared with me, he's like, Josh, he's like, I think that you have to be passionate about what you're selling and what you're doing in retail. He's like, so whatever you're passionate about, make that happen. And I'd been on a boutique cigar journey, for a long time, for over 10 years. Pete Johnson from Tatawahe, I'd met him in the early 2000s, right as he was starting. We'd started a friendship at that point. There was more of me being a consumer and him being a manufacturer, but Pete and I are the same age. We had a lot of things in common. And so just turned into kind of a rich friendship, before we ever opened the lounge. And so we decided when we curated the Humidor that we were going to take people on what we call a journey. Like, I didn't want to be the shop where people come in, they get their Olivas, their Rocky Patel, the Perdomos, and not that there's anything wrong with those brands, Altadis brands, General brands, anything like that. But I wanted to go out there and find the manufacturers that I thought were interesting. So I would say at that point, the big brands, because we didn't even have Fuente at that point. Fuente didn't open an account with us until last year. And in less than 6 months, we became an Opus account based on the volume that we were doing. But when we opened, the biggest name brand in our Humidor was My Father. Right. So just based on Pete and Yanni and our relationship, My Father, Tatawahe, Illusione, when we were at that first, it was an IPCPR show in 2017. That's where I met Enrique for the first time. He had a little 8-foot card table. He was dressed in the nines. And my buddy that owned a cigar shop in Vegas, he took me to Enrique's booth and he said, look, order all of it. He's like, you don't have to question it. He's like, you've got the emerald, you got the ruby, you got the black gold, you got this one blue sapphire. Order it all. I'm like, well, I've never even heard of it. And he's like, Josh, just trust me. This guy absolutely knows what he's doing. And we brought it in, and it's been a top 5 selling cigar in our Humidor. We brought on Warped, right? So we knew the products coming out of Tabsa. At that point, it was Casa Fernandez. It wasn't even Aganorsa Leaf yet, and so we knew the tobacco was good. We knew the rolling was good, and for me, it was much about the education as it was the cigars. So being able to talk to consumers about, hey, if you're enjoying that cigar, this is where it's manufactured, this is where the tobacco is coming from, and being able to pair them up that if you're really enjoying that cigar, this company is also using that same tobacco and you're getting, derivatives, that blender's come up with. So from day one, it's been very, very boutique. And it was funny, the general rep came in a month after we opened. And he walked through the Humidor and he came out and he's like, I just don't think you're going to last 6 months. And I said, really? I said, why do you say that? And he's like, well, look, I've been in the industry, and he's a great guy, Patrick. He's just awesome. But he's like, look, I've been in the industry. He's like 20 plus years. He's like, I don't even know half the brands that are in your Humidor. He's like, and customers are going to come in. They're going to ask for the Monte Cristo. They're going to ask for the Cohiba. And you can't check any of those. I mean, to this day, we don't have Perdomo, we don't have Rocky Patel, we don't have Altadis, we don't have, the only general products that we have right now are Room 101, because we had an existing relationship with Matt Booth before he sold. So, when you come into our Humidor, it's very boutique, Dunbarton, it's Foundations and Nick, and those are the brands that rule the day. And so we get a lot of feedback from people around the country that come into the Humidor and they're like, holy shit, we have never smoked out of a Humidor like this, where it's just very, very difficult. And selfishly, my wife and I do the math all the time that if we ever wanted to just close our doors, we do the math of, if I'm smoking 5 a day, my wife smokes about 3 to 5 a day. We know how long we could just enjoy our humidor before we'd have to like restock. So that's always in the back of our mind. Like, I'm never going to bring on anything that I haven't smoked, and I'm not going to bring on anything that I wouldn't enjoy smoking myself.
Right.
Well, it's funny that that's mentioned, that walking into a humidor and you don't see ones that you're familiar with, because I, for one, like going into a humidor and finding things I've never heard of before. Because it's easy to get into a rut, but I like to find things that are interesting. I've walked into humidors, it's like, show me something interesting.
Yep. You do the same thing that I do. I still travel around the country, and when I go into a humidor, I talk to the staff first. I'm like, hey, what are you smoking right now that you really enjoy? And I was actually in one in what's called it's in the Raleigh-Durham area of North Carolina.
Okay.
And the guy immediately took me over to a Warp Cigar, and I was so impressed. I thought, wow, that's pretty rare that somebody would go to a boutique brand like that and grab one of Kyle's blends as something he recommends. So
I don't know. That's always my experience at your place.
yeah, and look, and I don't want those people smoking the same cigar all the time. Like, everybody has their favorites.
Right.
But I want people like trying different things, experiencing different things. And we've earned our customers' trust. Like, our general manager for our store ran a shop in Portland for 5 years. One of the best actually probably the best tobacconist I've ever met. I mean, his ability to recall blends, to recall what customers smoke. I mean, when people walk in the door and Jeff's there, Jeff's like, oh, yeah. Have I got a cigar for you? And he's personally taking people into the humidor and saying, hey, this just came in from, company X, and trust me, it's going to hit your palate. And everybody goes away going, fuck, that hit my palate. Yeah. Thank you, Jeff. So you build that trust, and it's a lot of hard work. Right. And I think a lot of retailers, I shouldn't say a lot. I don't know what the percentage is, but they're hobbyists, right? And they're bringing in stuff, but it's kind of like they're on their register or on their phone. They're waiting for the register to ring. But are they in the humidor? Are they working with people? Are they providing that service? Because at the end of the day, if all you're doing is waiting for somebody to bring a cigar up and pay for it, it's cheaper and faster to do that online, and free shipping.
Absolutely.
So my unique selling proposition is experience. And we talk about that all the time with the staff. Like, they need to get a first-class experience in the lounge.
I like that.
You certainly succeed on that.
Thank you.
Well, that's what the brick and mortar is for. Like you just said, you can find any cigar you're looking for with 4 clicks of your mouse on the internet. But, the reason that we continue to go to brick and mortars, we search out brick and mortars when we travel, all this stuff is because we want that experience. We want that salesmanship. Just like Scott said earlier, go in someplace and like, hey man, what do you got? What do you like? And
Larry, it's a well-made point. We talk about it almost like the Cheers model. Like, I want people to feel better when they leave than when they came in the door, right? So how we greet people is very intentional. And Greg's been up there, right? Greg can't walk in the door without 4 to 5 people. Greg, hey, welcome back. How you been? What's up with the cartel?
See, I'm popular somewhere.
Yeah, it's positive.
Hey man, what do you have to pay you for that?
Yeah,
don't ask that question on the air.
Huge
I was gonna say, what kind of? No, I know better than that. I know what he's worth.
It's So I think that's number one, and then number two, like, I think cigar lounges in general can be very intimidating. So one of the things that we did from day one with our 101 classes, which is literally the basic set of skills. And it's not about how to cut a cigar, light a cigar, where does tobacco come from, or why do I care? Even though we cover all those topics, at the end of the day, it's to take the mystery out of a cigar lounge. Because if I'm trying to attract women, which we actively do, because as much as I'd love to be with you sausage hounds, like, at the end of the day, I'd much rather smoke with women. Like, my wife is my partner in this business, and I don't want her to ever feel like she's not welcome. So being able to take some of the mystery out of the lounge and being able to make it accessible to young people, right? To make it accessible to women, young couples. Like, we have girl groups that come in now, that want to come in, they want to dress to the nines, they want to get their old fashioned, they want to get their cigar and have a night. So it's taking the mystery out of the cigar lounge and making it accessible to the biggest number of people you can.
Well, and that's the business model, right? You want to be as appealing to as large a mass as possible. You know,
Correct.
You know, you're only going to sell so many cigars to that 80 and over class that hates everything and everyone. You know, there's only so many of those guys floating around.
Well, and Larry, they're dying, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not getting any younger. You're not getting any younger. So my long-term success and my going concern is dependent on me developing. In fact, when we opened, there was only one cigar retailer in town. And it was in Boise, so there's no smoking indoors in Boise. So they didn't have a lounge experience. It was just a grab-and-go retailer. And when we went in 2017 to open, I had a conversation with the owner there, and I'd been buying cigars from his dad when I was in college 25 years ago. So it's been around forever. And he was very concerned. He's like, Josh, you know, I know you don't do things poorly. You're going to go big. And I'm threatened by that. And I told him at the time, I said, don't worry. I said, I'm not going after your customers. I said, I'm going after a space. I'm going to grow a whole new body of cigar smokers in the Valley. In fact, your business is going to get bigger 15 miles away. Well, what happened then? What happened was within 3 years of us opening, he had transformed his humidor, because he was really somebody who carried kind of the traditional Perdomo, Rocky, Alta Disc, General. Like that's what he carried, no boutique stuff. All of a sudden, he realized like the market's shifting. Josh is driving it. He started to bring in better products, started really focusing on service, and opened his second location a little over a year ago. So
Awesome.
it grew so much that he had to expand. And then we had another lounge open up out in Nampa 2 years ago. So we've seen this kind of explosion in the Valley because we led in experience and led in trying to grow the space, and not just, you know, hey, how can we protect those 60-year-old guys that have been around for 20 years and, you know, hopefully they stay alive to make my mortgage.
Well, I've been saying for years, you know, in my industry, you know, competition's good. It keeps everybody honest, you know, and we all do better when we all succeed, you know, and when you're not, there shouldn't be any infighting. There shouldn't be any, you know, bad blood, backstabbing, talking about whatever. The elevating everyone up and forward is just beneficial for the industry. Whatever industry you're in, doesn't matter. Cigars, you know, alcohol, you know, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the fantastic things about the cigar community is that we're not in competition with each other. I mean, even when you take it to podcasts, everybody's open to help out one another because it makes the environment better. I have been in some great cigar lounges. Perfect example, I was out in Bakersfield, California over the weekend over at Cigars Mas Fino. Want to give them a little bit of love. And it's just the friendliness of the lounge, man, from the guy working behind the register, taking you in back and saying, hey, is there something I can help you with, anything you're looking for? And, you know, guiding you in a certain direction and kind of get an idea. It's like, okay, you're an experienced cigar smoker and you look like you know what you're looking for, but hey, why don't you try this? Or, okay, you want to try some of that. But when you walk into the lounge and cats who you've never met before are walking in the door, shaking everybody's hand, man, that's where you want to be. It's a friendly place.
Scott, isn't it unbelievable? Like if you told me as a 5-year-old that my business when I was 50 would be taking my hard-earned money and buying rolled up lettuce that had been dried out and lighting it on fire. Like the 5-year-old brain, that doesn't even make sense. Like I can't even comprehend it. And yet I have everything. I got rich people. I've got broke people. I've got married. I got divorcees. I've got ultra religious. I got super atheist. And at the end of the day, the common denominator is we all sit in a room and enjoy lighting money on fire. It's bananas. And yet it's the other life change that I've seen. And you guys know Tommy, but you know, we've got to experience life in the vault. We've got to experience loss in the vault. We had one of our customers who was actually in one of our Cigar Don Williams videos, pass away a couple of years ago from cancer. And, you know, we remember him and we can go through these tough times together. We have guys that'll come in the lounge who lost their job and within a week have picked up an interview or a new job with one of our other customers because at the end of the day, it's a family, and which means it's ugly at times, right? If you make it about relationships, it's one of the things I write about in the PCA magazine. But when you make it about relationships, then it gets really tough at times, but it also offers the deepest and best opportunities for engagement.
Well, life is tough at times, man, and
100%.
The closer we go to imitating life, I think the better off we are. You know, if you're not going someplace to hide from these things.
No,
you're going someplace where you can settle in, relax, and focus on what you need to focus on. You know,
and be authentic.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And it's you know, I've been going to the same. We all been going to the same brick and mortar for a long time. I've got 20 plus years and almost probably 25 going to Tobacco Republic and Loomis, and you know, you've seen a lot of people come and go for various reasons. You know, we've had a lot of good friends, you know, pass on, move out of state, you know, stop smoking cigars, which I don't understand, but you know, there's a myriad of reasons as to why things ebb and flow with the crowd that comes in and out of there. And it's just, I've met some really quality people in the cigar community, and I'm thankful for it, man.
Yeah, no, it's the best. It's absolutely the best.
Now I have to ask, I don't know how far we are into the woods on this interview, but there's someone who's missing, who we haven't, we mentioned him for a minute, but I think we need Cigar Don Williams.
Oh, you want to do that now, do you?
I need, where is the Don? We need to speak to him.
So let's talk about Don. He's so when I started the vault, the business, you know, I was at the time I was thinking about what creative ways could we market the vault. So I spent about 2 weeks like reading articles, watching podcasts, you know, looking at what other retailers were doing. And one of the things that I found was everything was very opinionated in the cigar industry, right? Like I would listen to podcasts and be like, oh, he's the best, or that cigar's the worst. And you know, I'm giving this, you know, 10 thumbs up, and this one's a turd rocket. Don't ever buy it. And I thought, gosh, it's really angry. Like there's a lot of
sound familiar, Greg?
Right? There's a lot of that going on.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt. I was just looking at Greg because he's looking like I'm accusing him of something. I don't know. He's like an abused dog at this point. If I look at him, he thinks I'm going to beat him. I was just going to echo when we first did the podcast. Remember what we did and we went through? It's like, okay. And we were going back and forth. Pretty much similar to that.
Yeah. So a good friend of mine who actually worked for me, you know, a couple companies ago, was one of my marketing guys, and he had made a fortune doing a series called Hank Patterson. So fly fishing expert. So what happened was about 5 years ago, Orvis, like the fly fishing company, put out a contest to make a video about a fly fishing product or a promo or whatever. And if you won the contest, you won a $5,000 prize. So my buddy Travis, who has a company called Trout Jousters, and he does video production for the state of Idaho and the local Ford dealerships and everything. So just a media guy. He and my very, very close friend Reese decided, well, hey, what if we came up with a comedy series for fly fishing? And what's funny is fly fishing is a lot like cigars in that, you know, it does take an amount of money to get into fly fishing. It's very opinionated, just like cigars, and it takes itself way too serious. So he created this Hank Patterson fly fishing guide video. They won first prize. And so for I think it's been going 6 years now, they're paid by Orvis. He travels around the country. His name's Travis Schwartz, but he goes as Hank Patterson. They've done a full-length feature movie on him. Orvis had public, like, so now he has this whole Hank Patterson world. So dear friend of mine, so I told him, I'm like, Travis, I'm like, I'd like to do the same thing with cigars that you did with fly fishing. And he's like, done. He's like, what do you think the idea is? And I said, well, I want to have this character so that, you know, a lot of people in downtown Meridian refer to me as the Don of downtown, like in the mafioso, like I puppet, I control what happens in downtown, which is not true, but that's the moniker I get.
I don't know. I disagree with that, Josh.
That's what a Don would say.
So that's what a Don would say. So again, cigar, the Don, and then Williams is my wife's maiden name. So I was like, I have this character, Cigar Don Williams, I said, who is a self-proclaimed master tobacconist, master retailer, and basically got fired from his job, and he starts a cigar lounge, but he has no idea what he's doing. I said, I want to be the butt of every joke. I said, but I want to take on industry topics like the internet, like, online, but I want to take on really big topics, but do it in a way that's cheeky and kind of fun. So we're getting ready to do the first episode. So I show up there, and Travis and I are doing mic work and making sure sound was all good. And I said, Travis, I'm going to do this in a fake British accent. He's like, what are you talking about? And I said, look, I spent a good bit of time in London. I said, in my professional career, I said, so it's important to me. I would sit in these meetings and I would make fun of everybody and be like, look, I'm paying you honor here. I'm trying to sound like my imperial forefathers here by showing you some respect. And these people in London for years were like, you're just mocking us. Oh, well, it's not mocking. This is right 2 bits, and I'm trying to show you just how much I care for you and want to pontificate and make right all the things that are beautiful about British history, and this is my way to show you honor. So Travis is like, absolutely not. He's like, that accent's terrible. He's like, it's not going to work. And I said, all right. I said, tell you what, we're going to shoot the first scene. I'll shoot it with the British accent, and then we'll shoot it just as Josh, and then we'll see what works. And we got done with that first shoot, and he's like, it's so bad, it's good. So now here's the great part about the Cigar Don Williams character is I always wear the same outfit. So I have the cigar aficionado Guy Barra. I have the same hat that Pete gave me years ago in Nicaragua. That's that Brothers of the Leaf hat. So I always wear the same outfit for all the episodes. So on the first day of the trade show every year, that's what I wear. So I'm really taking care of that shirt because that Guy Barra, I can't really replace it. And so I'm just trying to get as many years as I can out of it. But I shit you not, I'm at the show the year after. So it must have been 2018. The first episode went up, and my wife and I are waiting to go into the show. And I told my wife, I'm like, I got to take a capiche. Like, I'm going to go use the bathroom before we go in. And I'm standing at the urinal, and this guy standing next to me, which is super awkward anyways, but guy standing next to me looks, and he does a double take, and he's like, I'm so sorry. He's like, you're Cigar Don Williams. He's like, is that you? And I told him, I use this voice. I'm like, I am so sorry. I'm like, that's my brother. I'm like, I said, he's kind of the face of and the guy's like, oh my gosh. He's like, you guys look identical. I was like, no, we're twins. I said, but he's more the face of the company. I run things kind of more day to day. And he's like, well, that guy's fucking funny. He's like, yeah, let him know. Is he here at the show? I'm like, I don't know. You might see him walking around or whatnot, but yes, that's Cigar Don Williams. It's been wild to Pete's come out. Pete's done a couple episodes. Steve Saka came out and did an episode. I've actually turned other manufacturers down that want to do episodes. Because at the end of the day, I got to feel it. Pete actually came up with an idea for a third installment down in Miami, where Don's going to go from being a master retailer, master tobacconist to a master blender. Where Matt's going to try to, Pete's going to try to teach me at the My Father Tatuaje factory in Miami on how to blend cigars. And I told Pete, I said, the only way this is going to be funny, I said, is if literally I ruin you and we're just rolling fatties and them nasty, and we're running around South Beach in bikinis, hanging out in a Corvette or a Ferrari, unless we just go completely derailed. And Pete's so funny. He's like, oh yeah. He's like, I'm in. He's like, we should make that happen. So I don't know. If there's a third Pete episode, it is going to be next level hee-haw for sure.
So it's going to be like a Miami Vice vibe kind of thing.
Miami Vice. I might be wearing a plum smuggling Speedo out on South Beach.
Pastels. It's all about pastels.
I just got to.
Scotch is coming back up.
Yeah, I gotta get Pete convinced to do everything. But no, we're. It's we took a break during COVID of shooting the videos. They're just a lot of work. I think what people don't realize is, to get a 5-minute video, it's a full day of shooting, at the kind of, level that we're doing it at. And, Travis charges me for it, because he's bringing in crew. So like Kevin, who's the tobacconist, he's a local actor. The only non-paid actor that we've had in that was my son. So in the intern episode, and now he's a micro celebrity on YouTube, but I'd probably have to pay for him now, but at the time he was a struggling high school student. So I was able to get the time for free, but yeah, they're not cheap. And we get no business out of it, other than, people think it's funny and people like watching it. So, but
yeah, you get a little bit of gravitas with it.
Yeah.
That's always good. Hey, if you do the one in Miami, I'll come down there. I'll be Tubbs. I won't wear a Speedo, though.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, Josh,
the world thanks me.
Yeah, so do we. Now, Josh, are those on their own YouTube channel, or are they available at the Vault's website?
Yeah. Vault website has them all. They have their own YouTube channel. So if you go to YouTube and search for Cigar Don Williams, I noticed you got the scroll at the bottom of the screen. So the Vault Live, there's actually a Cigar Don Williams page where you can go link and click on the videos. I think there's 6 episodes up there. It is kind of interesting to watch the progression of it. My favorite episode is the one we did with Steve Saka, and I love Pete. I'm so sorry, Pete, but the Steve Saka one, the whole purpose was Steve, much like myself, carries a large ego. So the whole purpose of that episode is entitled Master, and I just thought it was really funny to get Steve Saka to call me a master. So the whole purpose of that video, and I think my favorite scene in that video is when we're sitting there. So when he made his one and only Lancero for Dunbarton, he called it the "Now Leave Me the Hell Alone." So that's actually the acronym that's on the cigar. And he was so frustrated by it because he hates Lanceros, and we sell a lot of Lanceros in our shop. And so in the video, I've got a voiceover of Cigar Don talking about innovation. A master knows, how to innovate and create something new. And on video, I'm literally cutting a Lancero in half and handing one half to 2 different customers with a slow pan over to Steve Saka saying, "What the fuck is It's just one of my favorite episodes." So,
and for all our listeners out there, you really need to take some time and search Cigar Don Williams, watch the videos, because they are a riot.
Hell,
they're fun. Thank you. You're very kind.
Just go to the Vault website. So Greg sent something over to me, and I was busy during the weekend, so I watched it this afternoon. I looked onto the website, and I see your introductory video, Cigar Don Williams. I laughed my ass off. It was terrific.
Yeah, Don is a there's a the way we shot it. I'm a big fan of The Office, so I like that interview style filming. I like that Steve Carell and those guys never took themselves too serious. Yeah. I think that he was very comfortable making the Mike character the butt of all the jokes. And that's really the tone that we took with Cigar Don Williams. And yet in the episodes, we do take on things. I think it's the second episode, The Intern, where we talk about online sales. And Cigar Don talks about, I brought in this intern who's going to put our products, it's coming in 5 years. We're going to be on the line. No brick, no mortar, buying virtually on eBay and America Online. These definitive. So we do this episode about this intern that I hired, that doesn't even, and in the midst of this, I actually had a retailer call me, like a brick and mortar guy. And he's like, Josh, he's like, you're setting us back. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, well, you're talking about, on the line. He's like, that's the thing that's killing brick and mortar is all these online sales, and you're celebrating it. I'm like, oh, you missed the joke. I'm like, that's what was funny, is that Don thinks that he's creating something that doesn't exist right now. So I do like to take on larger industry topics, but do it in a way that's kind of cheeky. It's a little fun, and that Don's always the butt of the joke.
Now, if you would, for a minute, Tommy did a video with you with Cigar Don Williams, and it was with Enrique. Would you tell us what Enrique did when that video went live?
So in Enrique, my dear friend, when we first met each other, he told me about his 1502. He's from Nicaragua. And I made sure that you use the voice Enrique uses, and so Enrique just it's so funny to, he is such a gentle spirit and such a gentleman.
Yeah.
And yet I love sliding into my Enrique accent when I call him on the phone. So after that video got published, I get this phone call, and I don't take calls. I make calls. So if you do call me, you go right to voicemail. So I get this voicemail from Enrique, and he tries to do the Cigar Don Williams accent, and I had to save it. It's the funniest thing. So you have this guy who can barely speak English. I love you, Enrique, but you can't. And then trying to do a British Cigar Don Williams, and he's like, Cigar Don Williams, I'm Cigar Don Williams calling you on that. I'm like, Enrique, I'm so sorry.
Okay, I have to say, when you did that right now,
Yeah.
When you kind of half channeled half Don Williams and half Enrique, it kind of sounded like FPS Russia.
It really is.
You'll have a nice day.
Yeah, you have a nice day. You have a nice day.
Like,
No, it's I think voices are really funny.
Oh, yeah.
For whatever reason, I picked up Enrique very, very quickly. So there are times that I will call Soliana, his wife, and I'll try to do my Enrique voice to try to throw her off. But I think she's picked up on it. I think she realizes it's me.
well, what I laughed about in the video, he cuts the cigar backwards. He cuts the cigar and then he lights the cap. And I think, didn't Enrique call you going, "What the hell are you doing?"
Yeah, and that's a standard thing that Don Williams does. And actually, that reversal, God, I'd love to take credit for it. So the first trade show that we went to in 2017, and this is probably illegal, so I'm going to apologize to PCA right now. But we had a pass that one of our staff couldn't be there the last day, right? And my younger brother, was in town for NBA Summer League. And so I called my brother, his name's Jeremy. I'm like, Jeremy, hey, why don't you come down? I'd really like to, this is the first year that we've done the trade show. I was overwhelmed, all the vendors. And that's when all the big six were still there, so you had Davidoff and everybody. And I said, you need to come down and experience it, not to get free cigars or anything. I just wanted him to see it. So he put on this, Steve badge, and I brought him into the show, and I'm walking him around and talking to him about, the different manufacturers and what's going on. So we go into the Warped booth. And so Scott Lewis, who's one of my very dear friends. So Scott, if you're watching this, I hope you do. We go in there with Warped. Kyle was busy seeing with some other customers. And Scott's like, "Hey, let me get you a cigar to smoke." And he looked at my brother and he's like, "Hey, what do you like to smoke?" And my brother doesn't smoke cigars. He's like, "Oh, whatever, I'm easy." And so he gave him a Hacienda, fantastic cigar from Warped. If you haven't smoked one, please go out. Hacienda, unbelievable blend. So my brother cuts off, one end of the cigar, the cap, immediately turns the cigar around and starts lighting the wrong end of the cigar. And so Scott's kind of looking at him and let my brother kind of get the cigar lit, and then asked my brother, "Are you doing that intentionally, lighting it backwards?" To which my brother was so embarrassed, he immediately turned around and put that lit end in his mouth because he was so mortified by what he was doing. So I knew that for my brother's sake that I had to include that cutting and lighting a cigar backwards. And yeah, but Enrique was mortified. He was just like, what are you doing? You've got this. It was the 10th anniversary, the one AJ did for him. And he's like, and you're doing this nice video and you're turning my cigar around backwards. And that's just what Don does.
Yeah, yeah. Now I know one thing I want to touch on before we wind down here. You guys have just pulled off the coup d'etat that we want to pull off here in California.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your tobacco tax reduction bill, the Small Business Protection Act that you created.
So it really started with a cigar shop owner up in northern Idaho, Paul, the Racketeer Lounge up in Post Falls.
We know Paul.
Yes, we do.
Paul's a great dude. And Paul had really started, Paul's a liberty-loving individual. He is very not down with government, any kind of government intervention, anything. And so we would talk all the time about the taxes and the OTP tax in Idaho, which at the time, or still is 40% today. And so he told me, he's like, look, I've tried to push initiatives. I've got, senators up here in and he is in northern Idaho, right? And at the end of the day, what is it? 75% of the population in Idaho is in the Treasure Valley, Boise, Meridian, Eagle, Kuna, Nampa, Caldwell. So like, when we sneeze, the state catches a cold. But he was working all his legislative contacts up there, and we just weren't getting any traction. And last year we made a run at it. We thought we had a House member, because tax bills have to originate in the House, and just didn't go anywhere. We just kind of stalled out. I've got my own opinions as to why it stalled out, but wasn't going to happen. So in our elections last year, we had a customer who was a city council member in Meridian, a guy that I'm very close to, Senator Burnt. And I told Treg, I'm like, I'd really like to get behind your campaign. I said, but one of the things I'd really like you to tackle when you get to the state is this OTP tax. I said, because it's just unfair. I said, it makes no sense. We get lumped in with cigarettes, and the health impact of that. And because it's easy to just go vape, cigarettes, pipe tobacco, cigars, chewing tobacco, it's all the same thing. It's tobacco, and it's got to go away. And we're predominantly a Mormon state. So there's got to be a sin tax. So instead of looking at it and going, look, are premium cigars fundamentally different? And does that tax, is it punitive, given the fact that we have a cap in Oregon, we have a cap in Washington, and so we're uncompetitive. So for the 6 or 7 cigar lounges like ours that are in the state, we're in a place where we truly are uncompetitive with neighboring states and with the internet. So we got Treg elected. We did some town halls in our location in Meridian, really getting people activated, writing their House members and their senators. And we drafted up some legislation that Treg took, and it actually got initiated in the Senate. So that was error number 1. So it passed the Senate, which was shocking to me. So I think there were only 3 senators that voted against it because they framed it as a Small Business Protection Act. So even though the word tobacco was in there, the argument that they made on the Senate floor was this is a Small Business Protection Act, which everybody can get behind. And we had the case studies from PCA showing what the impacts were to overall taxation in the state when you level that playing field and reduce that tax burden on premium cigars. So we passed the Senate, it got to the House, and the House shut it down. They literally, the Speaker of the House was like, nope, we're not going to have a taxation bill that starts, and we thought it was dead. And Treg and a senator from Northern Idaho, Senator Berkey, they went to the House and said, look, we're freshmen. We screwed up. We didn't go through the proper channel. Please allow us, because now we're over halfway through the session. Please let us work with the House committee. This is a Small Business Protection Act. It passed this much in the Senate. We'd really like to see it go through. And we got an 11th hour, literally an 11th hour consideration, went through the House, passed the House properly, went back to the Senate, and then Treg marched it through the Senate, and we got it passed on I think the second to last day of the session. Governor signed it. So as of July 1 of this year, there's a 40% tax, but it's capped at 50 cents per cigar, effective July 1.
Sweet.
That's amazing.
Cue the applause.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's, if you think about it, and I think you and I were talking about it, one of the trips, I've made so many in the last couple months, and two more coming up. It's going to be potentially several dollars reduction that the people are going to see in their cigar prices. And that, I think, is amazing, because when you come from our state, as you and I have talked about, where it's 67.5% on the manufacturer or on the wholesale price to 50 cents, the savings is going to be incredible.
Yeah, so just to go through the math, and you guys have probably done this on your show before, but if I'm paying $5 wholesale for a cigar in a retail business, I'm going to keystone that. So I'm going to add the $5 back, and that should be a $10 product in a humidor. When you're in a 40% tax state, and Idaho was a little bit unique in that you had to pay that tax up front, whether you sold the cigar or not. So as soon as you imported that tobacco into the state, you paid the 40%. So now that $10 cigar, if I pay the 40% on $5, that's $2. So now that cigar is $12 in the humidor. So that cigar now, for that price cigar is going to go down to $10.50. So that's an immediate $1.50 savings per cigar whether they're getting a discount or not on their buy. So if you talk about the average price in our humidor being somewhere between $13 and $14, then yeah, Greg, you're right. You're going to see $2 across the board on the average price of our cigars coming off the top. And as soon as, and where it really hurts. So our second lounge in Eagle, we did a co-branded lounge with El Septimo cigars. And so, which is a ultra premium cigar. So the El Septimo cigars really start in the low 20s and they go up to $80 a cigar. So if you got a cigar like an El Septimo, which wholesales for $30, you were talking about $12 in taxes on that single cigar. And that cigar that should have been $60 in our humidor was $72 because there was $12 in taxes, whether I sold the cigar or not.
Right.
So that cigar is now going to be 60. Like, I'm not going to pass on 50 cents on a cigar that's that price. So really we're down to MSRP. Anything over $20 is going to be just what you pay anywhere else in the country, whether it's a 0% state like, Pennsylvania, Florida, or, the 2 cents or whatever that Texas is charging. So we should be in there and competitive for those price points with any other retailer.
Yeah. Well, and we'll all get a look at the Vault Eagle, because Josh just told me earlier before we got on air that the event for the 26th of May features Matt Sass with my father. And instead of it being at traditionally where it would be at Meridian, it's going to be at the Eagle. So I'll be able to get some good pictures in that with the Eagle, and hopefully we can do a tour and set something up with that, Josh.
Yeah, for sure. And, originally Zaya, who was the billionaire from Yunnan Holdings that was going to come out to do that El Septimo lounge opening, he's actually rescheduled, and he'll be here on June 1, which is a Thursday night, which is kind of fun. I always like those midweek things. A lot of times come summer, people activate, right? We live in Idaho. As soon as it gets warm, we want to be on the golf course, the river, the lake, camping, whatever. So a lot of our big events shift over to Thursday nights come summertime. So Zaya's going to come out June 1 for a big event. He's so funny. Zaya's, here's a guy who is worth $1 billion, or I think 4.2 or something like that. And he cares so much about the industry, and he cares about experience. And one of the questions he had for me was like, well, because he has lots of holding companies, but he's like, Josh, do you have females that smoke in your lounge? And I told him the same thing I told you guys. I'm like, Zaya, I'd prefer to smoke with women. So yes, we have lots of women in our lounge. And he's like, Josh, perfect. He's like, I got an accessories company in Italy. He's like, so I'm going to bring an $8,000 women's purse and we're going to raffle that off. And all I could think about was like, what cigar shop in the US is raffling off an $8,000 Italian women's purse? And yet this is the kind of stuff that a company like El Septimo is trying to do, which is, it's innovative. It's really, so that's going to be on June 1. Be a lot of fun.
It will be.
That's freaking wild.
Yeah, it's
crazy,
wild,
isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it though. I like
he's
it a
so
lot.
fun. When we canceled the event, here's how Zaya thinks, and I love this. We had to cancel the event because of one fire sprinkler. So we had one fire sprinkler that was spraying on the ductwork for the air handling system in the vault. And so they wouldn't give us occupancy. And Zaya lost his mind. He had the private jet fueled. He's ready to come up. And he's like, Josh, he's like, why don't we just pay Eagle Fire Department to have firemen there at the lounge? He's like, what could that be? $1,000, $2,000? He's like, let's just pay firefighters to be there. And then we do the grand opening and we'll be totally safe because we got firefighters there. And I actually went to Eagle and told them that, and their brains like popped. They're like, what do you're paying for a firefighter? Like, none of this makes sense. But so June 1, we'll get it done.
Sweet, man.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I don't think I'll get to that one, but it'll be okay.
Yeah, I want to go to that one you're going to the week after my retirement party, but that's Memorial Day weekend, and
it is.
You know what Tiny Wife has to say about that.
Yeah, I'm sure the Hickory Bronze October will be rolling down the road for that.
Yes, it will.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That, by the way, Josh, is his recreational vehicle.
Nice. I love it.
You ever see the movie Stripes?
Many times. Too many times. Bluff me.
Yeah, there it is right there, man.
Yeah.
The only difference is mine isn't green.
Yeah.
And the sad part
It
is...
could be.
Oh, yeah, I know a sign guy.
Yeah.
You want to do a wrap on a 38.5-foot RV?
Yeah, hold on. I'll send you the estimate.
one of the most hilarious things, and I don't know if you got to meet Juan Lugo from Don Doroteo when you were at the show last year.
I did not.
But he did the podcast with us. I think it was his first podcast that he did. And here comes Scott. Poor Juan walks into Tobacco Republic, and we're all set up. And here's Scott in his, is it black smoking jacket?
Yeah. No, it's more of a rich, dark purple, if you will.
And he went on probably Amazon, and he found the Russian Submariner's captain's hat, and he's wearing that through the whole episode.
I love it. Love it. No, the beauty of the cigar industry, and you guys have already talked about this, but it is such a close-knit community. There's, couple degrees of separation between families. And we make it a big point, even here in the Valley, we love to compete. Like, I want to have the best cigar lounge. I'm sure, our, competitors in the Valley, they want to have the best cigar lounges. But at the end of the day, we are helping one another. It's fun to meet these people, because you assume that like the first time I met Pepin Garcia from my father, it was down in Nicaragua, and we were down there with Pete and Yanni, and I thought, oh, Pepin, he's going to be this, he's a farmer. Like, I got up early in the morning to get in a pickup truck with him because he just wanted to drive around to the fields and look at tobacco. Like, they're so family oriented. Like, there was a big my father retailer trip that was happening while we were there, and so they had the roasted pig and kind of the whole big thing for the retailers, and then all the retailers left to go to the Hex Hotel, and when we were just there with a family, so you got Pepin, his wife, Jaime, Yanni, Pete, and they turned on dance music, like Latin dance music. And we sat out there and smoked cigars and drank rum. This wasn't a show anymore. Like, this was just family time. And we were dancing and just kind of letting our hair down. And like, that's the beauty of this industry. It's very family oriented. These are farmers that really have an unbelievable passion for their product. And that's sort of the passion that when we get those people coming into the lounge, that visit Idaho, that we want to pass on, right? We want to have those people in there, let them tell their story.
And I think you absolutely do. It's one of my favorite places outside of my home shop to be.
Yeah, look, I gotta sell a shit ton of product. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm a profiteer at the end of the day. I love selling a lot of product. But I think the way to get there is experience. I think it's educating the consumer, and making people feel better, when they leave and when they come in. I think you do those things, you're gonna sell a lot of products. So
yep. Well,
you're gonna have fun.
I gotta send you something. I need you to put a box away for me for when I come up in 2 weeks.
Deal.
But before we wind up here, because I know Larry's got to get on the road for an appointment here, but we didn't talk about what we were smoking and drinking real quick. So, Larry, what you got down there?
I have a Mr. Red from Sinestro.
Fantastic cigar. Sinestro, we do so much business with them. So do you know the background of Sinestro and James and Coleman?
Yeah, we had James on.
Yeah. Look at those guys. Like, we were really big with La Aurora cigars when we first opened, because frankly, they just have great tobacco, great rolling and everything. And when I met James and like, I looked at the band and it was like Sinestro, made by La Aurora. I'm like, so, like, Coleman talked to me, like, what's going on here? And he gave me the whole backstory. And that Mr. Red, fuck, it's great.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites. The Mexican San Andreas, pretty much anything I come across with a Mexican San Andreas, I'm going to try it because you have to. Ecuadorian binder and Dominican and Nicaraguan filler. So it's kind of it's a richer flavor than I think a lot of smokers would expect.
Yeah.
From looking at the cigar, you look at it, and as dark as the cigar is, as the wrapper is, I think a lot of people are going to think that it's harsher than it actually is. But it's a really rich, really earthy, just a great cigar. And I can drink scotch with this. I can drink a dark beer with this. This is just one of my favorites, man. It's going to be a good stick.
So James is coming up to Idaho in June, and one of the things I'm most excited about is it'll be the first time that he's come and been at the vault. We actually are going to shoot a Don Williams episode with him.
Nice.
And we're going to shoot it on parenting. So James just became a dad in the last year. I just became a grandfather in November, so that tells you how old I am.
Right on.
But we're going to do a parenting class where Don is a master parent, and he tries to teach James about parenting, and James is like, "You're an idiot." So we're going to shoot the master parenting. I can't believe I'm like disclosing this, but my favorite part of the trip is last year he was supposed to come in the summer, and he had a conflict and he had to cancel, and he was so broken by it that he's like, "Josh, what is the one-off product that you'd like me to do for you?" And I told him the blend. I won't ruin the surprise here, but I told him what blend I wanted. I told him what format I wanted it in. So he went and did a custom run of 400 cigars for us with that blend, with that size, with a custom vault logo. That'll just be an exclusive for that event in June. So there's my James story. I love it. So Mr. Red, great call.
Okay, I got to tell you, after July 1st, I'm going to make a trip out there. I'm pretty sure Greg won't have a problem with that.
Nope. We'll road trip it.
Yeah, we'll road trip it because I'm the type of person, I walk in and I like, if it's box worthy, I'm getting it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what about you, Scott? What are you smoking? I'm curious.
I am smoking. Greg got this for me actually on his last trip, the 1502. Is this the Sapphire? The one that was in the box?
Black box or blue box?
Blue box.
Blue Sapphire 1502, yes.
Oh, man, I love the Blue Sapphire. I think I smoked this when we interviewed.
Well, that wasn't actually a show. Enrique was kind enough to join us one night for a video herf.
Okay.
And it was just a great time talking to him, and he's actually one of the guests we need to get on.
No doubt.
But, that 1502 line, that's what I'm smoking too. I have the 1502 XO.
Nice.
And
which size?
You only had one when this one was bought back then.
Oh,
this one's the Torpedo.
Yeah, I hide them all. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I now know who to ask.
I don't think you're sorry at all.
No,
I think that's bullshit.
Larry, let's be honest here. Like at the end of the day, like Pete even tells me this. He's like, I don't know that I've met a retailer that rat holes more product than you do. Because at the end of the day, I love this concept of the vault. So if you go into our walk-in humidor in Meridian, there's a locker bay that's got 14 lockers in the humidor. So people always ask me, they're like, well, what's in there? And it's like, none of your business. Like those aren't member lockers. That's where I lock up treasure.
Yeah. You can piss straight off. That's what's in there.
And I've got a key and everybody knows the key ring and everything. So when I go in the humidor, like a lot of times that's the way I thank people, I'll crack something open and be like, well, what's that? Well, it's a pork tenderloin from 5 years ago, from Pete, thank you for coming in, enjoy it. And
nice.
So, but there's a lot of those XOs that my favorite size is actually that Robusto Extra in that. So I know that there's a box of those. There's some Lanceros, some Perfectos. Yeah, I rat hole a lot of stuff. So when you guys are up there, I give you full permission to engage with me to maybe show you some product that's not available.
Sounds good.
I like it.
And we have video proof of that too.
You have video proof.
Right on.
But yeah, I mean, his line is just great. And you've got another one that is my favorite. And actually it's our favorite too. And great story behind that one. And that is, of course, the Apostate.
Yes. Brandon was actually just in the lounge last week.
I know. So, I'm sorry I missed him.
No, so Brandon Apostate. So first of all, the guy that's blending the cigars for Brandon is Hochi Blanco from La Galera. So I don't know if you've ever had La Galera cigars.
Yep.
If you have not, fucking get them. Hochi's one of my favorite humans. So like Hochi speaks very little English. So when you're at the show, the language we speak together is rum. So I usually sit down in his booth and the staff work on whatever business they got to work on. And then Hochi and I get together. His son just started blending with him. And, but yeah, Hochi's the one that's doing all the blends for Brandon and Apostate. So as soon as Brandon told me that, I was like, yeah, done. Like anything that Hochi makes, we put in there. And that kind of goes back to what I was talking about early in the show, which is finding those blenders and tobacco, that know what they're doing. Because if you're not starting with great materials, you can't actually get to a great cigar. And also, if you have great materials, it's not a given that you're going to come up with a great blend, right? So you really have to have the great materials. You got to have the great blending. So when you find those people, the Hochis, the Dions, the Petes, the Pepines, Boothie, like, go and get their stuff and represent that stuff. Because frankly, there's a lot of people that are slapping a lot of fancy shit out there, and we're in the richest period of cigar smoking as far as like brands and offerings. Like this is even, I believe, bigger than the 90s in terms of stuff you can get your hands on.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Enjoy it all. Dive in. Like, you should be smoking all kinds of different stuff.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
And it was funny because with Brandon, he had never met us. So Tommy sends us a Desserrat, an Initiatory, and a Leahona from your shop.
Yeah.
Sends them down to me. And I had every intention of being, like you, rat these things away and not share them. And I said, you know what? Let's cold smoke them for a show. Brandon had no idea this was happening. So when the show went live, Tommy sends the show to Brandon, and he's, I guess, listening to it in the car, happy as a clam. And then we got to talking a little bit on Facebook, and the first time we met him face-to-face was PCA, when we did his spot. Then he came on the program, just a cool dude, and now he's here locally in TR. We were the first shop in California to get him.
Yeah, no, great. And so literally he was on a road trip to go do events over in Washington and Oregon. And we actually had a Room 101 event going on that night. And he walked in the door, and he knew Tony from Forged, who's our rep. But he came in, sat down, lit up a 101. I mean, we're all friends of Boothie, out of Spokane. And so, like, the whole Northwest connection. And so we had a fun time texting Booth and smoking the cigars. But he could have been there, been disruptive, been handing out feathered serpents or whatever. And he just wasn't. He was in there as a cigar guy, smoking 101s and having a great time. So yeah, Brandon, you're just not. And that's the great thing about this industry, is there's just so many good dudes that you want to succeed.
Yes.
Yeah. And we meet more of them, every day, and that's a great thing. There's just I think that's what blew us away about going to PCA last year. For our first time, is that that was just overwhelming. Not only the big established houses, the new up and comers, the all the swag, all the different ancillary products for cigars. I mean, it was amazing, just amazing the amount of stuff that we saw and the cool people we met. You definitely got to reach out and meet Juan Lugo from Don Doroteo.
Okay.
Super nice guy.
Yeah, real put together cat too.
Yeah, really squared away dude, and he's got a hell of a cigar, man.
Nice.
It's a good stick.
I'll bring you up one when I come up, Josh.
Okay. Sounds like a deal.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And again, and I can't say this enough about brick and mortars. Now, I just got back from I think I was gone for about 5 days in Southern California. And I want to give some love to some cigar lounges. First of all, Fresno, California, Cigars LTD. Fantastic humidor. Great little setup. I hadn't been there in about maybe 12 years, and he did some changes. When I was first there, it was a lot of open space in the lounge, to the point where you could have clicks. You had the computer click on this side here. The guys watching sports on one side. They had an old barber chair, and a cat would come in and do shaves. And it was just a real friendly place. They kind of compacted a little bit, bringing in different product. And the humidor is still fantastic humidor, but it's the people, man, that make it, because everybody's friendly. I walked in as a stranger in Fresno, met like 3 or 4 cats, and I'm looking for a job right now. I got a hook up on a job opportunity. He says, hey, check these guys out. This guy, the owner's real cool. See what he has to say. He might be looking for somebody like you. Then I was in Orange County out in Fullerton at the 888 Cigar Lounge. It's a modest humidor, but that's not what you go there for. Humidor is real modest. They have a couple of chairs in the front, the TV going. It's like you're thinking, hey, basic cigar shop, right? So I'm talking to the tobacconist, and, he says, hey, have you seen our speakeasy? Because there was a door on the side, and I was just like, nice. Is that another humidor? He says, oh, no, that's the entrance to the speakeasy. He says, usually for a day pass, it's about 15, I think it was $10-15. But he says, hey, if you're a visitor from out of town, hey, go in there and check it out. So I walked through this door in this hallway to another door, open this door up. Holy fuck. There's a beautiful bar at the end, but as I'm walking towards the bar, they have this bank of TVs. I mean, it was probably about 8 or 9 TVs on the wall that I walked into. They had another 2 or 3 large TVs. We're talking 80 to 100 inch on either side. And walking through there, and there's a guy talking to the bartender. And, you know, I go up and get my drink. All of a sudden, him and I get into a talk about religion. You know, and it's just like a real cool talk. It ain't no argument or nothing. You know, I mean, he was a devout Christian. I'm an agnostic. You know, I was a Christian, but we actually talked about it. And he says, hey, these are the cogent reasons why I believe in this, this, and that. And it was something to listen to. And he was giving a theory. And I said, that's probably one of the most cogent arguments, you know, that I've heard. And it's just real fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
And then I was in Bakersfield. I mentioned them, Cigar Mas Fino. I go in there, I have my cigar. Folks will walk up and shake your hand. They walk through the door shaking everybody's hand. Hey, man, how's it going? How you doing? Hey, what's your name? And got into a conversation with another cat. It was great. Invited me to the Friday poker game. Played some poker that next night. Had a great time. Bought a box and, you know, spread the news about the podcast. But it's a lot of fun. That's what this community is. We share information and talk to each other. You're not just sitting there with a cigar by yourself.
No, I'm going to tell this story, and I hope this doesn't come off wrong. But
oh, hell no. Go ahead.
So I'll apologize in advance. So I had to be in Atlanta last fall for some work-related stuff. And whenever I'm in another city, I'm looking into, you know, what are the highest rated cigar lounges, or I'll call manufacturers and be like, hey, I'm going to be in Atlanta, or I'm going to be here, point me in the right direction. Where do I need to go? So I got a recommendation for a lounge that was near the airport where I was staying. So I had, I went it was a half a block walk from my hotel. So I walked in there, and we are very monochrome in Idaho. So there are not a lot of brothers in Idaho. But I grew up in Southern California. So I moved up here 33 years ago. But we get to this lounge. I am the only Caucasian in the entire lounge. And there were, I kid you not, this had to have been no bigger than 1,500 square feet. And there were 100 people in there because they were having some birthday party for one of their members. So it's standing room only. It's shoulder to shoulder. I walked in the door and I immediately was like, look, this is they're having a party for somebody. I'm intruding. I turned around to walk out because I'm like, I just, I don't want to intrude. They grabbed me by the shoulder and they're like, what are you doing here? And I said, look, I said, I'm from out of town. I got a recommendation. This is a great cigar lounge. They're like, this is the best cigar lounge. I said, well, I feel like I'm intruding. They're like, look, we're having a birthday party for so-and-so. Don't worry about a gift, but come in here. Let me show you the humidor. I partied with those people for hours and there was nothing but love. So here I was, this like Idahoan, pasty as all get out, and there was nothing but love. Like, it was the greatest experience. And so I talked to the owner later and I finally told him, like, I've got a cigar lounge, and I shared with him. I said, I hope that my lounge has a 10th of the culture that you guys have curated here. I said, because I felt so welcome. And I said, and I just hope that people come to my lounge, get the same kind of love that you guys give here. I just really, really appreciate it. So I love cigar lounges. I think they're great.
Yeah, and I've experienced the reverse, being, the one black guy there, and walk in, and it's just, like you say, it's nothing but love, man. That's what the cigar community is all about, man. It's like, no one gives a shit what you look like, what you do for a living, whatever, man. Come in and, have a smoke. You'll learn some stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's fantastic.
And there's one more thing before we wind up here, Josh. I want to get you hooked up.
Haven't we been winding up for like 30 minutes?
I know.
love
Quit
this.
saying wind it up and just
Well,
go
anyway,
with it.
I want to get you in touch with Graham and Catherine, this little bottle here on the front of the table here. Hogback Distillery. They're out of Boulder, Colorado, soon to move to Estes Park, but it's a line you got to check out. I grabbed Graham's card for you so you can get in touch with him.
Yeah. No, please do. No, we supported it. So Idaho liquor laws, everything's got to go through the state, but we actually helped a company out of California called Toasted Oak Whiskey. that wanted to break in, and they wanted to do it with the vault. And there's a way to get these like more small batch. And just like we take a boutique approach with our cigars, we do the same thing with our craft cocktail program. So I love finding little nuggets of great pours that we can partner with. So yeah, please send that over.
I think we did.
Okay. Oh, one other thing, brother, that I'm going to make a request here.
Yeah.
And, since he's not here, I'm going to ask you to pass this on to him. But I'd like to have Don Cigar Williams as a guest to talk about podcast. What do you think about that? I mean, I know I'm asking you, and that's kind of assuming, but, I want to see if you can sell this to Cigar Don Williams to come aboard as a guest on one of our near future shows and talk about podcast.
I think that Don, I mean, as long as you're willing to embrace somebody who's not completely in touch with, the excellence that could be a cigar lounge, that I think we could probably find the hat and shirt.
Okay, seriously, have you met me?
Yeah,
we're gonna be fine.
He's shady. No, we one of the things that we've toyed around with is making him. I've got to figure out a way to monetize it. Like I got to figure out a way to like the Don can actually promote the vault and not sound like an idiot.
But
there's
his
some
hook.
more. Yeah, it is his hook. I'm just afraid that a real connoisseur is going to look at it and be like, do I really want to buy anything that guy's selling? Like he compared tobacco to loose leaf iceberg lettuce that you just dry up and light on fire. I think that was in the first episode. Like, I don't know that that's the tobacconist that I'm trusting, but I can talk to him. I can talk to his people.
Yeah, talk to him. I'd like to get him on a few. I mean, I'm talking about real soon. I'm talking about within the next few shows. So, strike while the iron's hot, I say.
Right.
And we get him aboard, have a good time.
I think what you need to do. So the Rojo Corojo, which is Hannah Martinez, the Dawn and her are going to be doing some live streaming just to promote the vault. I think what would be funny is to get Dawn and Hannah both, because I think Hannah speaks Dawn a little bit better. Like she could be that very attractive compliment to a guy that frankly is not as handsome and pretty inarticulate when it comes to the industry, where Hannah would add great value. So maybe I can see if I can get both of them to be on the show, and we could take this next level.
Outstanding. I love it. Yes, we got to make that happen. I'm serious. I mean, I am so serious to the point of I am previewing this for the show. Stay tuned. We are going to have this. This is going to happen. It's going to happen early summertime, I think.
Okay.
So, producer?
V can do that. I know a guy in Idaho that's very friendly with Don Williams.
Outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hey, now that when you say you wind down, you wind down. So we're going to wind this down right now. I want to give a big thank you to Josh Evarts from the Vault. Thank you so much for being aboard and tolerating our insanity. And actually, we're pretty toned down this episode.
Yeah.
No, I thought we covered a lot of great ground. I mean, I think that anytime that I get a chance to talk about industry, talking about relationships, talking about the real underpinnings, then it should be a serious conversation, because we are under attack. I would say smoking in general is under attack across the country, and people don't get to see this side of it.
Nope.
And I think it's important, and any chance that I've got to tell that story. So a little plug here. So I just found out today that I'll be on the ballot for a PCA board position. That election will go off. I think it's June 1 is when the election or the voting period starts for retailers.
Okay.
But they finally convinced me to run as an executive or as a board member. So retailers will be voting on that. But I the plug or the case that I'm making for the Vault is we're doing something very transformational in Boise, Idaho. So if we can do that in Idaho, then retailers that are in California, Texas, wherever, where there's much more population, will be able to do these things and be relational, be intentional. Don't be that retailer that, is waiting for the register to ring. Be that retailer that's building relationships. Because if we don't do that, if we don't have those great lounges, then it's very easy for municipalities and states to just exit smoking, right, and get rid of it. And we should be protecting this. I want to be able to travel around the country and find great lounges to go to, and it's under attack. So I'm appreciating that it was a thoughtful conversation today.
Right on. Hey, Gorilla, take me home. Well, the cigar is getting down to the nub, and my scotch glass is empty, so I think it's about that time. Once again, I want to thank Josh Evarts from the Vault for joining us, and on behalf of the Gorilla, hey, you haven't said much this one.
Yep.
Gee, thanks. Try to give him top billing. This is what happens. And on behalf of Lawrence, Greg, and myself, hey, thank you for listening. Check us out at LoomisCigarCartel.com. And
I can't help myself.
what the hell was that?
That was the crowd roaring for us.
Thank you. Check us out at Loomis Cigar Cartel. Like and share us on Facebook. You're going to see more and more Instagrams, so check that out. And hey, don't be a stranger. Love us, hate us, whatever. Drop us a line and let us know you're out there. I'm Scott Robinson, and on behalf of all of us here at Beyond the Humidor, we look forward to chatting with you on the next episode. But until then, as I always say, stay healthy and safe, and good drink, good smoke, and good life.